welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, the podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Inside Out 2. Now, before we jump into that, I just wanted to give a big shout out to all of the movie nerds. We are growing so much right now, it's a little bit hard to believe. I think we are up to 94 subscribers on YouTube. So I'm pretty sure YouTube has surpassed all of the subscribers that I have together on other platforms. So we are really, really growing on YouTube. I love that. I love that you guys leave me comments and we can chit chat about different movies. I've been really enjoying that and really enjoying getting to connect with all of you on YouTube. So if you guys could like, share, and subscribe, I would really love that. It would be so cool if we could get to 100 subscribers. I think that would be an awesome milestone. So let's jump into Inside Out 2. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Inside Out, this is a Disney film that came out, I want to say the original one came out in 2009. So I think it's been like 15 years. It's been a pretty good amount of time since the first film came out. And this one really kind of revolved around the emotions personified in our brains as the things that are helping us sort of make decisions in life. And the movie, the first one, followed the character of Riley, who was a very young girl at the time. And you had, you know, like joy and disgust and sadness and fear that were kind of pushing buttons inside of her brain in order to have certain reactions or have her outwardly be portrayed in a certain way. So in Inside Out 2, we are still following the same little girl of Riley. She is older now. I think she is like 13 when this movie is taking place. So in the first one, like what I loved about Inside Out was that it had a really good message behind it, but it was presented in such a nice, fun, lighthearted way. I know that there were a couple of moments in the first one, like with her imaginary friend, where when he kind of dissolves or is left behind, that definitely I feel like was very touching. And of course, like I think that sequence always makes me cry. And so when I went into Inside Out 2, I was expecting kind of the same level, maybe a little bit more mature. Obviously, we're dealing with some more mature sort of emotions like anxiety, who I think has been the center of most of the commercials. But I assumed that they would do the same with this one as they did with the first and approach that in a very lighthearted, very funny manner. Now, despite the fact that reviews for this, I feel like, are off the charts, like everyone is giving it a 5-star review, I will have to be honest and just say I am definitely on the wrong side of the table from what seems like mass audiences with this one. Now, I will say, just sort of as a disclaimer, I am judging this purely as like just an adult who likes Disney and Pixar films, or who has liked them in the past. I am not coming at this from like the perspective of a parent who is looking at it as something like that the kids would really enjoy. I am not sure, or I can't really speak to whether or not kids would really like this one, though I will say I think if you have younger children in the maybe 3 to 6 range, this might not keep their attention. It does deal with a lot more serious elements. I will say that Inside Out 2, I think, is a lot more depressing and a lot less fun. Like there are a lot less, noticeably to me, a lot less funny, lighthearted moments and a lot more sort of serious, somber, sometimes a little bit scary, I guess. Not scary in a horror way, but scary in an I'm not sure that kids will kind of understand really what's going on there, depending on how old they are. For instance, there is one moment in the story where the character of Riley, who is this 13-year-old girl, has a panic attack, and it really is just sort of portrayed in a way that kind of looks like a tornado happening inside of her mind. But it's not really like, not that it could be explained, but it's not really ever explained what is happening to her. Like, it never comes out and is like, you're having a panic attack. So I'm not sure that a kid would understand what's happening to her in the same way that like an adult seeing the same circumstances would understand that. So for me, Inside Out 2, I don't think was as good as the first one. I definitely liked this one less. I was not as interested in it or not as hooked into the story this time around as I was the first time. And again, like I said, I feel like this one was just a lot less funny, a lot less cute, and a lot more like serious, somber, depressing, which I understand kind of happens like when you're going through puberty. Obviously, you have a lot of like complex emotions that are happening, but I just feel like they focused more so on like the negative aspects of what was happening to her and not necessarily the positive aspects like that could have sort of carried her through. It was like she was being given a completely different personality, which I do understand, you know, when you're a teenager, sometimes you can become unrecognizable to like your parents and the people around you because you do have a lot of those new emotions sort of swarming through you. But I don't really feel like they broached the topic because of the way that the story is told of how to process through those emotions. It was just like they were all there and then the emotions inside of her brain sort of fixed it for her. But there never was that moment with her friends or with her parents sort of helping her to understand kind of why she is suddenly feeling this new way. It all centers around kind of her playing hockey and the emotions that are centered around her really wanting to do good there. So I think just personally for me that they could have covered a lot of this in a different way or a better way or still done it in a fun way so that even if the little kids didn't understand it, they were still having a good time. And there were quite a few kids in the theater with me that were just kind of jumping all over the place and not really sitting still, and older kids that were doing that because I just don't think that their attention was necessarily captured with this one as it was with the first one. So for me, even though I think it is like a good kids flick, I guess, as far as cartoons go, it didn't win for me in terms of the story or the way that the story was done. So those are my thoughts on Inside Out 2. I would love to know what you guys thought of this one if you have seen it. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.